So, Ange, we have some big news coming up to announce, uh, especially something that's never been done in the sport of pickleball, and it's happening this summer. Would you like to fill us in on what it is?
Yeah. So
So, Ange, we have some big news coming up to announce, uh, especially something that's never been done in the sport of pickleball, and it's happening this summer. Would you like to fill us in on what it is?
yeah. So my twin brother Ettore and I have been approved by Guinness World Records to embark on the journey of setting a new world record that hasn't been done before. It is the longest pickleball volley rally. We wanted to follow suit with our second tennis world record, which was the longest tennis volley rally. We've been approved to set the record on Sunday, July 21st, although that date may change to Saturday, August 3rd, because my brother has a big event involving Save the Children that would take precedence, in which case we would move it to Saturday the 3rd. The way Guinness works is you have to first put in an application to set a record, and there are two types: an existing record that you want to break, or a new record that doesn't exist. So we're trying to do the new record that doesn't exist, which is the longest pickleball volley rally. So then we have to wait for them to set what the number is. They go by number, even though they require you to record the time, but it goes by number of consecutive volleys without a bounce.
And it's not
Although,
like just if that record's never been done before, it's like, okay, we'll set it at 100, right? They're pretty smart people.
yeah,
They give you a number that they're like, this is a pretty decent feat to accomplish, right?
yes, yeah, which I do appreciate it, although it makes it more challenging. But it maintains the integrity of Guinness World Records Limited, because then, all records are virtually impossible or almost impossible, or definitely world records, not just
Yeah.
a backyard local record. And it's going to honor my mom, who unfortunately passed away 2 years ago of pancreatic cancer. So for those of you out there that have lost a parent, especially your mom, I can empathize. We can empathize with you. So we're raising money for Save the Children in her honor. It's going to be a Stand Up for Cancer affiliated event, and we're really excited about the challenge. Although I will say it is not for the faint at heart. We tried our first physical practice, although mentally I've been practicing for months since we put the application in. The application takes usually Guinness 3 to 6 months to approve, unless you pay an expedition fee. But we want to keep as much of the monies as possible. All of the money's going to the charities. So the long wait is over. We found out yesterday morning the number is set at 10,000. If you recall, our third world record, or our first pickleball world record, was 15,000 set by Guinness, the longest pickleball rally. What makes this one monumentally more difficult is two things. Number one, the ball can't bounce. And number two, you can't be right up against the net. You have to still honor the non-volley zone, 14 feet in total, 7 on each side. So it's fascinating, Alec, is we did a test and we were able to rally our basically our first attempt of 1,430 times. And that took between 20 minutes and 30 minutes. We've calculated that we could rally the pickleball 80 times per minute. But to be safe, you want to keep it simple. We're going to calculate 60 shots or target 60 shots per minute, and then multiplying that through, you're looking at 3,600 shots per hour. And then to eclipse 10,000, you're looking at over 3 hours, right around 4 hours.
Okay. Which some might say, hey, this one's 10,000. You already did 26,000. Like, this should be a piece of cake. But there's a lot of elements involved with how pickleball operates that make this completely different. So give us a little bit more of that.
Yep. What makes this record much more difficult than our other 3 world records is the fact that the plastic ball doesn't bounce itself. It's not rubber like a tennis ball. It doesn't have a rubber core. So you have to do all of the work, not some of the work. And the other is based on my 3-2-1 method of point of contact training. You have to hit a 3 or a 2. And I can attest, because our first attempt was 1,430. So then we tried it again the next day. Now, granted, this was outside. The sun happened to be right in my eyes. It was about 4:30 p.m. And there was wind for sure, gusts of wind, because the storm had just passed. So the ball was blowing all over the place. And we had 2 or 3 misses under 1,000. It was a very, very humbling experience. Every single miss, it was the domino effect. It wasn't just a miss. It was the wind blew it to my right. I had a lean to my right. I hit a 1.5. It goes to his left. He leans. He hits a 1. I hit a 1. And it's like it goes all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where the paddle is so small and the distance is so big. 16 feet doesn't sound like a lot, but we're preparing that 2 extra feet because we're not going to do the kitchen violation, which is good. But the downside is I didn't realize how simply just adding 2 feet, 1 on each side, would make a huge difference in your volley. It just makes a giant difference. And it is unsettling because it reminded me, and I told my brother right away when we missed like 3 times in a short period of time, right away, it reminded us of our preparation for our very first longest tennis volley world record. We had practiced at Hamden High School. And it was a funny story because the etiquette in tennis is to wait until someone is done with a point to then go behind that person to the next open court. And there was an elderly couple that wanted to play tennis next to us. And we didn't see them in the corner of our eyes because we're so focused on the longest volley. And they were waiting there probably 5 minutes. And then we said, "Oh, sorry, we're going to be here a while. You could pass." So it was kind of hilarious. But I remember us missing several times within 1 hour. We could not make 1 hour, never mind 14 hours and 31 minutes.
This was during the tennis volley.
This was not the volley. This was the rally where it can bounce. And what we then said and what we're saying now is, and this is true for your goals and dreams in life. You have a dream. You have a goal. You know you are going to accomplish it with a surety. And at the same time, 2 sides of that same coin, you have no idea how.
No idea how.
No idea how, but somehow it is going to happen. Mark my words, whether it's July 21 or August 3rd, there will be a 4th world record that we have, and it is going to be the longest pickleball volley rally. But I can tell you right now, I have no idea how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. We have to figure out a way to do it, but it is extraordinarily difficult. So what we've taken off our checklist is an outside venue. There will be no outside venue for this. It is going to be inside. The only challenge on an indoor venue, we've gone through this before as far as prep, is a power outage. And that is an uncontrollable. But what we did in our longest tennis volley rally, the one that was on Federer's birthday, the 30,576 volleys, there was a garage door. And so we kept the garage door open so we had natural light. And we also tested turning off the lights, and immediately the floodlights would go on. So even though it would be funky with your vision, that we felt like we could get away with a few more volleys with natural light and the floodlights. But that one, I'm going to not worry about that one. I'm going to put that one, the power outage, as an uncontrollable, that it is what it is. We can't control Mother Nature and a power outage.
And that's really why you're moving inside in general, right? Is to take control of the elements that you really can control, right? And remove as many as the ones that you can.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of that was key that you touched on, and it really emphasizes our entire narrative, is that whether it is I'll say extreme feat like this outside of the stereotypical norm or anything in life, if you want to accomplish something that you have no idea how to do, what makes you think that the first time you do it, it's going to be a success? You've never done it before. You don't know what it takes to do it, right? So you ultimately have to fail over and over and over again so that you learn over and over and over again. So when that day does come, you're now prepared. And I think that is so true, is that when you guys set your previous world record, you were talking about the rally. You said you didn't even make it an hour, right? And what was it almost
14 hours, 31 minutes.
Right? 14 hours and 31 minutes you ended up having to go. And on your first time around, you didn't even make it an hour. And you probably looked at each other like, oh, this is going to be a long way. But you never questioned getting there. You just said, hey, this may be a little bit longer of a journey than we actually anticipated after the first start. And I don't know if that thought actually went through your brain, but often that's what happens when you step in the first time. You underestimate a little bit everything that needs to go into accomplishing something great like that. Then you have to reset expectations, right?
Yeah.
You have to reset exactly what needs to be accomplished in order to perform it. So I really wanted to emphasize that because it's a critical point in every part of life that you mentioned. It really is. You have to fail. You got to learn. You got to take that new knowledge. You got to reapply and do it over and over and over and over again. Now, where I want to kind of transition into is, you mentioned doing this one for your mother.
Yeah.
Did you have any thought about doing something else? Or were you like, listen, this has been what has already given us so much exposure. Now that people already know we've done it before, the amount of people we could actually reach is now 10 times greater. Like, what made you say, okay, let's do another Guinness World Record rather than something else?
Yeah. When we did our first one, I didn't think we were going to do our first one. And then when our mentor passed away, it became inevitable. It went from not even a thought in my imagination to something that inevitable was going to happen. And there's a Christopher Reeves quote that basically says, at first you think something is impossible, and then eventually over time it becomes not only possible but inevitable. And we have to get to that mindset of inevitability by the date of this, whether it's July 21 or August 3rd, because if you don't have 100% belief that this record will inevitably happen. It will not happen. It's just not gonna happen. And, you know, the way to relate to it, because some people say, well, you're not trying to beat each other. You're not trying to hit the most difficult shot.
Yeah.
You're trying to hit a shot that your partner could then hit back. But that makes it more difficult, not less, because I have to focus on not only making the ball over the net beyond the kitchen line, I have to give it in a spot that is not left or right shoulder, left or right hip, whatever. All of the shots that I normally go for when I'm competing in pickleball, I'm getting out of my comfort zone and hitting a makeable shot, not makeable. So I say it's a kind of a 1.5 times focus. The first part of the one is my shot, and then half of it is setting him up to hit his best shot. But what I told my brother, because he said when we did this, is this is tough, and I want to emphasize, by no means, just because it'll be inevitable for me, do I think it is easy. There is a drastic difference between inevitability of something, of a feat, and easy. Yes. There is no easy in this. And how I like to say is, you could fail 10,000 times before you succeed once. You can fail 10,000 times before you succeed once. We're looking for that once to be on July 21st or August 3rd. And that is a key mindset to have. But since the ball doesn't go on its own, a tennis ball, you can hold the racket firm. The ball will rebound off the string somewhat. And if you're at close range, you're blocking it. This is a punch volley. This is not a block volley. A block volley is going to bounce. So this is more of a punch volley. And yet you don't want to punch it too fast, because if you start going back and forth faster and faster, yes, you're hitting more shots in less time, but you still have to hit the 10,000 shots. So it's, do you want to do the sprint or the marathon? And that is always the challenge with duration records like this, duration feats. Do you want to risk cramping, soreness, fatigue? Do you want to go quicker, in which case your eyes come into play more? Because after an hour of doing the volley rally for tennis, your eyes really start playing games with you. So we know we have to go 4 or 5 times that. So, I'm glad Guinness, I will give a shout out to them. I'm glad they didn't say, oh, your world record volley rally was 30,576 for tennis, so we'll match that for pickleball. Well, there's no way. You have the kitchen on both sides to deal with, the quicksand kitchen that you have to get over. So yeah, so it's challenging, but you have to have that belief. And I've said when I coach athletes that, it is important that your friends believe in you, your siblings, your brother, your parents, your coaches, it's your sponsors. It's important that they believe in you, but it is optional that they believe in you. It is mandatory that you believe in yourself. That is the one mandatory part of belief. You have to start with building the belief that not you can, should, could, that you will do this.
So let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about more like generalities of what you need to do, but this is a perfect example, real time, of exactly what you've been doing to prepare for this and will be doing to prepare for this. So can you walk us through what you've kind of already done in order to prepare for this world record up to this point?
Well, the first is the purpose has to be there. It's courageous to put yourself out there to honor, your mom when we weren't ready for 2 years to do anything like this.
Mm.
I have to get that readiness by the date. I have to get the, but you have to put the application in sometimes before you fully are ready, and definitely before you're practiced. It's not like we practiced, knew we were going to do it, and then, okay, let's put the application in. Not at all. But you have that feeling, that intangible feeling that it is time. It is your time to do it. And that's what makes things like this really scary, because, during COVID, when on October 10th of 2021, World Mental Health Day, when we did the 16,046 dinks, that was during COVID. We could not get COVID. I mean, then you're done. So, if we get sick on that, it doesn't matter. You have to show up and do it. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters. You have the 24-hour time frame according to the rules to start the attempt. It could finish after. So the 14-hour, 31-minute record was on August 9th and 10th. We started it on August 9th and we finished on August 10th. So we can go over 2 days. We just can't start on the second day. So if, let's say, it's August 3rd, we have to start on August 3rd and go from there. As far as, preparing, I'll say preparing, because you train dogs, not humans. You educate humans. Is, the preparation first is the purpose, and the purpose kind of tends to just happen organically. And then once you have the courage to declare your purpose and assign a feat like this to the purpose, then the next step is the belief is, okay, what am I going to do every day to believe that this will happen and go from impossible to inevitable? What does that journey look like? And there's emotional, there's mental, and there's physical. The emotional is that you can't have an emotion and a thought, except for maybe the emotion of love. You can't have an emotion and a thought at the same time. So knowing that this is such a, sensitive purpose.
Yeah.
It's such a personal purpose. And anyone who's lost their mom can empathize with my brother and I. Mm. It is that lost feeling of, why are you here on this earth? The person that put you here is no longer there for you. And, so it's, you can't get caught up in the emotions, because then you can't think. And if you can't think, you can't implement what you're trying to do, your game plan. So a couple of the things are, number one is still working on the date. The date is in question, July 21 or August 3rd. I mean, that right now is my first priority, is to identify it so I can put a bullseye in my mind of what it's going to be, because it can only be on one day. According to the rules, that for those that aren't familiar, Alec, with Guinness World Records, you can't just, I'll go do a record, and whatever day I do it, that's the day. No, you got to say, we're going to do it on this day. That's it. If you don't do it on that day, you do it the day before, the day after. No, it's
for mental prep. Why is having a specific day locked in? Not even 2 different days, right? Why is that one day having it so important?
That is because, I believe and practice and coach that you have to rehearse failure before you can rehearse your success. And the failure needs to be far out enough from the date that you only have positive images and vibes of you setting the record up into the event. You can't go back and forth. So with that, I need enough time. I need to know when I'm going to stop coping with possible failure and move it to only doing the record. And that is why that date for me is so important.
Is that a process that you've already started?
Yes. Although I haven't completed it yet. I can't complete it yet until I know the date.
Mm.
But I can reference our tennis world record, for example, the volley rally there. I was probably a month out of the failure. I dealt with the failure, the possibility of letting everyone down about a month out. And then that last month was just imagining what it would be like to hold that record, to achieve that feat. And so,
Being more detailed about the failure itself. What did you rehearse? What did you go through? What did you think about in that moment? Because I know that most of us are like, okay, we don't want to let anyone down. We don't want to let ourselves down. But from a detailed perspective, from an imagery perspective, what did you do to actually see that and feel it?
Well, we engaged a mental skills coach ourselves because I believe that to be a great coach, you need to also be coached.
Yeah.
And so we had a coach. We talked about, for an endurance record, these are considered endurance records. It's not like the quickest Rubik's Cube solving or something like that. It's an endurance feat. So although it's taxing on the body, it is a big mental struggle and challenge. So dealing with that. And then that was the first thing. And some of the things that we uncovered, discovered, and then went through were, okay, it was miserable. You know, we missed 5 times and we didn't even get over 100, and it's 10,000. You know,
Yeah.
is that embarrassing? What happens to my image? You know, is my family still going to love me? You know, and the thing is, yes, they will, and it's okay. And you got to deal with those things. And even with anything, even playing a pickleball tournament, and you're trying to win gold, and let's say you don't medal, or you're trying to win prize money, you know, and you don't win prize money, everyone's still going to love you. And I would say, if they're a friend and they love you for what you achieve and not who you are, I don't know if they're a true friend.
I agree with that.
But, you know, these are real sensitive, tough topics. And, you know, what I've really come to an epiphany, Alec, is when you set to do something that no one else in the world has done, you got to be a little insane. I mean, my wife says it all the time. You know, she's a huge supporter. But I remember going from our first record to our second record. Well, you're older now. You have, your cholesterol is higher. You move slower. You have injuries, like all these, you know. And she says it in a, it seems like a negative way, but it's a caring way, right?
Yeah.
You know, if she had her druthers, just keep it simple. And why set another record? She even asked me yesterday, why set a 4th record? You have 3, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's not about the record. It's not about it. 1, 0, 100 records is irrelevant. It's the purpose of what you're doing. And that purpose is not going to go away from me, is that we're going to do something to make our mom proud of us. And I know that she wants us to be doing things together, and that this kind of thing, this journey, forces us to do things together, to communicate, to practice on a more regular basis, things like that. And that would make her really happy. And so it's the process. We talk about the process, right?
Yeah.
She's proud of the process. It doesn't matter the result. The result is the result, you know? And
I think that's where a lot of people have to realize what they enjoy allocating their time to. And I know that we emphasize that, but I think that's really, really important here. Because when you do enjoy every single day the time that you're spending doing whatever activity it is, for you, that now becomes you enjoying and loving the process regardless of the outcome. Because you're saying, I'm going to spend my time every single day doing this, regardless of the outcome. I might die before I get there. But because I know that I'm allocating my time to things that I love on a daily basis, you find a lot of fulfillment in that. And I would tell you the emphasis that I want to put on purpose is massive, because the only way that you are going to grind day in and day out, because there's going to be a lot of days where you're like, you know what, I love allocating my time to this, but I do not want to be here, but I'm going to do it anyways, right?
Yeah.
On those days, you need your purpose as a mental check. And I think that's exactly what you're emphasizing here is you are setting out and doing this not because you want a fourth world record, right?
Yeah.
Not because you already have 3, but because your purpose here is to, 1, honor your mother, and 2, knowing that she is going to love you two doing this together as brothers, and
Yeah.
having every part of that be a part of the process. So it comes down to 1, purpose, and 2, loving the process. And I know that sounds cliche in so many ways because it gets overused, but dwindling down, it is allocating your time to things that you love. So if people haven't found that, I would challenge them to go and take mental notes like, hey, I enjoy doing this. Like, I don't think about time while doing it. Write it down, be like, okay, maybe I have to think about allocating more time to this. And then if you need financial support, the second stage is like, how can I do this every single day and have it support me financially? Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the process that needs to go into play as well, is look at the things that you enjoy first and then see how you can make an income from it, not vice versa. Not saying, hey, let me go and make a great income, and then when I get to a point of retirement and I only have maybe 20, 25 years left max, then I'll think about allocating my time to things that I love when 3/4 of my life is gone.
Yeah.
So I personally just absolutely admire what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? Because you are a prime example of allocating your time to the things that you love and finding a way for it to be supported financially by it. And I think more people need to take that narrative and truly need to understand how that brings fulfillment in life over anything. And it's all led by purpose.
Absolutely.
To get a little bit, to dial back a little bit now into, because I know people are so curious about the preparation, what happens during the event, et cetera, but I really want to stick to prep today because this is real time. And I think that is where a lot of value is going to be generated going through this world record. The real time part here is that you're talking about, hey, we're preparing for mental failure and physical failure. Like, we're rehearsing that, we're feeling the emotions associated to it. We're imagining in detail all of our 5 senses that are correlated to that. And then we're kind of moving forward.
Yes.
Right. So is it correct that you're in the process right now of really digesting and trying to figure out, okay, when do I switch the narrative to now all of the successes that can happen, all of the positive outcomes? Are you in that spot of I'm preparing mentally for failure, and then I'm waiting for a date to really say, okay, here's where I switch on over?
Yeah, you know, it's a journey in the prep, but I would say that I'm on a ongoing state of readiness. So if someone were to say tomorrow you have to set this record, sorry, there's a glitch in the application, I would be ready to do it.
So
It's
why?
just because
Tell me why.
the purpose is there.
Yeah.
If the purpose is not there, you can't chase your purpose after the fact. It doesn't work that way because there'll be nothing to show for it. There will be no record. And, when you try to do something for your own ego, that involves fear, because fear is from protecting you from harm to your ego, right? And when you don't make it about your ego, then there is no more fear. You shouldn't be afraid to go after your purpose. That's why you're here.
I think that, yeah, I think fear holds so many people back, right? I told you my story originally and really why we came to the project and developed into what it is today is that the massive fear of failure developed into massive expectation that really held me back. And I think when you can now separate your ego and replace it really with purpose, you're right, fear becomes obsolete. And yes, in those moments, you do still become a little bit nervous, a little bit anxious, but that just becomes routine at that point, right? It becomes a part of the process. It's saying, okay, I know this is going to occur no matter what. I've now navigated it many times. We're going to navigate it the same way. So whether it is fear of failure, whether it is fear of judgment, I think it is super, super important to understand that that does come from ego. And it's not like fear of like things is completely different. So let's make that clear. Fear of snakes, fear of sharks, those type of fears are completely different than what we're talking about today, right? But I think it is super, super important to emphasize the removal of ego from the equation, especially when it comes to that mental prep. So now when you are in that state of mental prep that you are in, this has happened to you many times throughout your life, meaning you're really preparing for unexpected events. For people that may be doing this the first time, and you were quick to say, you know what, I'm ready at all occasions because you've done it before, right? You've kind of already said, hey, I'm prepared for any unexpected thing to happen. That first time around, though, how do you navigate or even prepare to tell yourself anything that occurs, I need to be ready for? Because I think that's something that I struggled with the first time around. I thought I prepared for a lot of outcomes, but I didn't necessarily say, you know what, any outcome that I didn't prepare for, I'm also ready for. I think that was my missing piece my first time around. So how do you, the first time around, really prepare for anything to occur that you didn't plan for?
Well, I've coined the phrase the Elvis principle. I use this not in our first world record, but our second one.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that really love Elvis's music and think he's still alive. And so, you know, I said, if Elvis walks into the room and I see him in the corner of my eye, I'll be like, oh, look, there's Elvis. That's nice. Stay focused. So basically, you got to accept the distraction and then shift back to your goal, your focus. And that's how, you know, you do that is you got to accept the distractions in advance.
Yeah.
Pre-accept distractions and pre-accept the uncontrollables. And that's basically the way you have to do it.
Would it be, so me thinking about that on another level, let's say Elvis doesn't do it for you. Would you really challenge anybody to think of, okay, what is the most distracting thing for me in this moment that I know would pull my focus away from what is occurring? And that's what I need to use in that moment. Whether it is, I don't know, let's say for me, if we are talking about fears, I don't like snakes. Something about the way that they move, I don't like it. So, with that being said, if I'm playing a pickleball match and a snake creeps up on me, I need to go and look and say, okay, snake, great, move on, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
would you challenge anybody to replace Elvis with something that would be highly distracting to them?
Oh, for sure. That's
Yeah.
something that resonated with me. And, you know, I knew it would be a big distraction if that ever happened. And
Big Elvis fan.
it didn't matter. Yeah, I would say I would definitely respect his career and I like his
Yeah.
music. But it was more, you know, you have to do it. But I think the thing is this is, you know, it's impossible until it's done.
Yeah. 100%.
So therefore, nothing is really impossible, right? It just hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
So if you rehearse the word "yet," there you go. And Al, by the way, I have a hard stop. I have to go. Do you want to do the question?
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah. And you could,
So the question is being, and this actually correlates to right now and even what you experienced the other week in your tournament, is when you are going through processes like this, how do you quote unquote celebrate the micro wins when you're moving towards such an extreme goal, right? Because you do still want to stop, be present, and identify, hey, this is a big win today, because that's going to build your confidence as you move forward towards something like a Guinness World Record or any sort of high achieving extreme goal that's outside the norm. How do you go about those micro wins to build that confidence without really overlooking them?
Yeah, there's two things. First, there's short-term and mid-range goals. Those are successes or steps on your ladder towards success. So you got the big goal at the top of the ladder, and then you have the steps going up the ladder, and each of those steps needs to be celebrated. And I think what some coaches get wrong, and even some athletes, is, like let's say you're dealing with young children and you're saying, if you win this pickleball tournament, let's go for ice cream. Well, that sounds fine and dandy. I love ice cream, even though I'm lactose intolerant. But hey, but then you're like, well, what does that tell you if you don't win? You don't deserve ice cream. And then it puts everything onto the result. And as you know, you can't control winning. So therefore, the definition of insanity is holding hostage your crave for ice cream until you win, because you don't have control over winning. So you're never going to get that ice cream, or you may never get that ice cream. You certainly don't have control over getting the ice cream. So what you do is you take that out. We are going to celebrate with ice cream, win or lose. And you set the date, you set the time after the next day, right after, whatever. And you have to treat. So that's the way I coach my athletes, the athletes I work with. But
Okay.
you coach yourself with that, is you put it there and it's not tied. So therefore you're celebrating the process. You don't celebrate the successes, because the wins are not the successes.
You're really celebrating the work that you're putting in more than anything, and consistently celebrating that throughout the process. I love that. I absolutely love that. Ange, I know you got to go, so thank you for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I can't wait to keep moving forward with this world record.
It's going to be awesome. Thank you so much.
Stay tuned.
10,000.
10,000 coming soon. And what I will say is, moving forward, we'll put a link for donations. So anything that does happen, we'll put a link for Save the Children. People can go there. Feel free to donate. Either way, thank you, Ange. Have a good one. I'll see you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.